An important year in the history of women's emancipation in Denmark is 1871. This was the year that the National Society for Women, henceforth known as DKS, was founded. The organization still exists, and they have since 1934 have their home in this building. There's no sweet talking that the women's emancipation was from the beginning driven by the already privileged. It was the women of the higher bourgeoisie and the daughters of priests that were the main elements of DKS from the beginning. There were very few noble women, but then again there were very few noble women in the society at large. But there were virtually no daughters of peasants or laborer or journeymen, and this was later to create tensions within the organization because of the focus that the organization chose. The very first chairman, Mathilde Beyer, had been inspired by the French organization Association Internationale des Femmes, which was combining both the women's struggle with the peace struggle. This was very natural from a French organization founded in 1870, just after the end of the Franco-Prussian War. But the Danish version that did not suffer such war had a different outlook, and they basically cut the ties both with France and the internationalism, but also with the peace movement. And this Beyer considered a personal defeat, so she resigned after just 1 year. Her replacement was Caroline Testmann, and in her 10 years as chairman, the focus was mainly on education. One of the initiatives that came from DKS was the foundation of a trade school for women, and Testmann was made the first dean, and actually only dean, because when the school closed in 1906, she was still sitting there. It was not that there was no need anymore for women to educate itself, it was just that the regular trade school was now open to women, so a special one for women were superfluous. Another initiative was taken by Sophie Petersen in founding the Women's Reading Association. She was a rather frail person and only survived less than a year after the founding of the association, so she never actually saw the construction of their own building shown here. The credit for this should be given to one of her successors, Sophie Alberti, who ran the association for more than 20 years, and the association survived until 1974. That the association got its own building was actually a bit controversial, and it didn't succeed until she agreed to not only have the association but also have several other facilities for women, such as a women's hotel and offices for the DKS. In the meantime, DKS had a new chairman, Marie Morsing, and it was during her time that the social struggle began to make fissures in the organization. Being herself born of noble parents, she married a commoner, and she was adamant that the people at the lowest part of the scale should be better off. So rather having new schools, she wanted to have the apprenticeships open to women. But by doing so, she also opened the flank for issues that were more close to lower classes than from the classes that she herself came from. One of those issues, exploited by her deputy Astrid Stampe Feddersen, was that of prostitution. Like Rosing, Stampe was also nobility, but unlike Rosing, She did not marry below her rank, and in fact she had to move around the country because her husband was placed in the higher civil service. This in turn meant that what was before primarily a Copenhagen issue became more widespread across the country, and social issues such as sexual morale became an issue that she would focus on. And rather controversially, she organized a meeting in the DKS that focused solely on prostitution. Big uproar, and it nearly split the organization. It was clear to all that they had to make some new organization to deal with more political issues so that DKS could be a more of an umbrella organization. And this cleared the path for reopening the issue that Mathilde Beyer had focused on from the start, the one about peace. The new organization, called the Women's Progress Organization, was founded by Johanne Meyer. The stage was set for DKS to become more a political organization and focusing on the suffragette.